I know, intense, isn't it? Before there was the Fast and the Furious, there was the Wraith. I remember at 10 years old, being a kid that was raised in the 90s, my dad would always have these random VHS tapes that he would just record off the TV whenever a movie would come on that he liked. I guess you could say it was the earliest version of pirating things. Now, one of those VHS tapes that I absolutely loved throwing in when there was nothing on the old clicker, that's what we called it back in the day, was the Wraith. It was a VHS tape that my dad must have recorded off of the TV, but it had everything you could want. It had cars, racing, action, love, mystery, creepiness, and I wanted to take time to go through my love of this movie with you guys today by going through the entire plot with you. Now, some of you probably have seen this movie, especially those of you who are older in your 30s or 40s have probably been familiar with this movie, or you're just a big fan of Charlie Sheen.
I'm by winning. I win here and I win there. Now what?
But some of you may be sitting there asking yourself, what is the Wraith? Now, if only someone could answer that question.
I don't know, maybe not from this particular terrestrial realm.
Sorry, Charlie. All right, how about you just calm down for a second, okay? I didn't even start the damn movie yet, and you're throwing out accusations already. But, I mean, I guess we'll take his opinion into consideration later. Because that is really the question of the movie. What is the Wraith? And to be honest, it's not a question that's easily answered. In fact, I don't even think they ever actually answer it in the movie. But I think through some detailed investigation and going through this movie with you, maybe we can finally figure out what is the Wraith. Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, because we're about to jump balls deep into 1986's The Wraith, or as some people refer to it as, the original Fast and the Furious. Okay, I gotta be honest, I don't think anybody actually does that, but I think it sounds good, so I'm going with it.
Oh, shut up. Shut up. Stop. Move forward.
Damn, okay, Charlie. I guess let's take it from the beginning. So the movie opens up with these lights that are descending down from the stars and following along these desert roads. They're also melting roadway signs along the way until all the lights eventually converge together, revealing the one and only Wraith car. Oh my God. I can't believe it. It's a Wraith car. So from now on, we will be referring to the Wraith car as the Wraith car. Oh, that's going to be fun. And then out steps the Wraith himself in front of his Wraith car. You know, I will say for the 80s, this character has held up very well. And I know that the idea of visitors from outer space coming down and visiting us was very played out in the 80s, but I think that this movie definitely takes a different approach to the outer space extraterrestrial visitor by also making it kind of more of a ghostly figure than a visitor from another planet. All right, so just to be clear, the Wraith isn't exactly an extraterrestrial being. Even though it comes down from the stars in the beginning of the movie, it's hard to really explain what this thing is. We know it's a vengeful spirit, but is it a ghost? Yes, I think it's a ghost, but there's so many questions that are going to need to be answered during this examination of this movie that I'll do my best to kind of speculate in what I know or what I understand to be the Wraith. So we join what looks to be a Chad on a date with his precious blonde female when out of nowhere they look behind them and see the lights of 3 different cars riding their butt. They begin to panic. Eventually they're forced to stop when they see that there's a total blockade in the road that won't allow them to travel any further.
What the hell is that?
Marge, who are those guys?
The Mustang comes to a screeching halt, and this is when we meet the antagonist of the film, Packard. The Chad asks, "What do you want?"
Why'd you stop me? What do you want?
Packard says, "Well, let's just say it's pink." Giving off a really creepy vibe, almost like he's trying to imply that what he wants is the woman and not the car, but then he eventually reveals pink slip to the car is what he actually wants. Not her vagina, which is what the joke implies.
They think the title to your car might be worth something.
Now, if you're wondering why the guy can't say no, it's basically because he doesn't really give him the option. He says, "You either race me and win and you keep your car and we'll let you go, or you lose and I get your car and then we'll leave you to be. But either way, you're racing me." He then adds, "Oh, and if you think about leaving, we're going to keep your woman here. And when we're done with her, you're not going to want her back. We're going to do some of the most terrible things you can ever imagine to her if you keep driving. So if you lose, come back and retrieve your woman." This is where we get our first race of the movie, and it happens right off the get-go, which I think is pretty cool.
You lose the race, you lose your car.
Starting off the movie with a high stakes race like this really kind of lets you know what kind of people we're dealing with here. The race starts off pretty epic. By all intents and purposes, it looks like the guy in the Daytona seems to have the edge over the Corvette throughout the majority of the race, to where it almost looks like he's about to win when Packard in the Corvette ends up trying to run him off the road, even putting him into the guardrail, causing sparks to fly. So he basically cheated to win, but he would have lost the race had they raced fair and square. The Chad then says, "I would have won if you didn't cheat," to which the mysterious bad guy, Packard, says,
You lost, guy. What can I say? Take your girl and walk.
warning to him that if you try to make a big deal of this, we're going to kill you. Chad then says,
You're nothing but road pirates. You gotta cheat to win.
then Packard whips out a switchblade knife, suggesting that if you keep talking, I'm going to cut out your tongue. The movie then cuts to some mysterious guy on a very bumpy road driving up on a motorcycle with a kick-ass 80s songs playing in the background. I gotta admit, I really love the 80s styles of movies. There's just something about the way the music fits in with it that just made you feel a certain type of way. I don't really get that with movies nowadays. Maybe it's nostalgia in me. I'm not sure personally. We then see the primary love interest of the movie. And by the way, I don't care what anyone says about the girl from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Phoebe Cates. Sherilyn Fenn, in my opinion, was the most beautiful woman in the 80s. You know for sure that it's an 80s movie too, because she doesn't even know this guy and she agrees to hop on his bike to show him the place that he's looking for. We learn that his name is Jake Casey and she's Carrie Johnson. Before they could take off, Packard Walsh shows up and makes Carrie get off the bike. Carrie gets off the bike voluntarily though, trying to most likely protect Jake from Packard. Packard tells her, "Carrie, you're mine," almost treating her like she's a sense of property than a human being.
You're mine. I'll do anything necessary to keep it that way.
And then he says to her, you know, people die on bikes every day. Basically hinting to her, if you like that guy, I'd probably not let him near you anymore. We then cut to some type of watering hole where everybody's hanging out, I guess going for their daily swim in the local lake. Packard comes off like a very overprotective stalker type in this movie by basically saying, if you're not my girl, Carrie, then you're not going to be anybody's girl.
If you're not gonna be my girl, you're not gonna be anybody's.
Packard definitely seems to like to use violence to try to control people around him. When you saw how quick he was to pull the switchblade out on the chab he stole his car from a few minutes ago, something tells me that Packard is a bit of an insecure loser or just a straight up psychopath. It's a flip of the coin, really. We then see Jake lying on a bunch of rocks, pretty much staring at Carrie like a lovesick dog, when Billy Harkins walks up to him and introduces himself. You can tell Billy's supposed to be like the real nice best friend in the movie, but is always really sweet and has the best intentions. Very 80s movie trope. While Billy's talking to Jake, he notices that Jake's got a lot of scars on his back. He doesn't ask him about them. He just kind of goes, oh well, let me just see who you're looking at. You're looking at Carrie, aren't you? To which Billy then warns Jake that messing with her could get you killed because Packard is obsessed with her. Billy goes on to add though that she used to be really close with his brother Jamie. Billy goes to tell Jake that his brother Jamie was killed and murdered by somebody, but they never found out who. I'm sorry, can I take a second here to just say, if everybody knows that Packard is obsessed with Carrie, how does not one person put together that Packard was most likely the guy who killed Jamie, considering how obsessed Packard is with Carrie? But anyway, I digress. We then cut to Packard, who sees the guys up on the rock staring at Carrie, and then he flashes back to when he killed Jamie, because something about Jake just reminds him of Jamie, but he can't quite put his finger on it. Now we finally get to meet my two favorite characters in this whole entire film, Skank and Gutterboy. Skank is addicted to doing drugs, but not like real drugs, like drugs you could buy at Home Depot, from pretty much anything that he can stick up his nose or inhale. Spray paint. I think at one point he drinks hydraulic fluid. It's really odd. And Gutterboy is like kind of like this hopeless idiot.
Jesus, what? This shit's got some kick.
Well, yeah, that's probably because you're drinking antifreeze, Skank. Gutterboy and Skank show up, beep their horn to try to get the attention of Packard, who comes over, thus leaving Carrie unguarded for Jake to make his move. Packard tells Skank and Gutterboy to keep an eye on Billy and Jake, and if they're anywhere around Carrie, to let him know about it. Packard then pulls out his knife and says, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill you, because what says friendship like threatening death? They'd rather be working on cars, but Packard really loves whipping out his knife. I'll tell you that much. I mean, Packard's just reminding him who's the boss, you know? It looks like Skank is drinking what looks like antifreeze or something like that. I can't really be sure, but whatever it is, it's insane. We then cut back to Carrie, who's on her float talking to Jake, while Billy looks like a sad loser on the rocks, but Packard sees him talking to her and immediately calls Carrie to come back.
Carrie!
I better go now.
Carrie then invites Jake to come visit her at work, which is at Big K's Burgers, the same place that Billy said that he worked earlier. The whole time that Jake's macking on Carrie, yeah, I'm bringing that word back, macking. Either Jake's got a total death wish or he has a secret and knows that nothing bad can happen to him, and he's out for vengeance. That's why he doesn't care what Packard thinks. It's an interesting take because we as the audience pretty much know that Jake is Jamie, but none of the other characters in the movie do, which you don't see very often. Usually the audience is hidden from that kind of stuff. But in this movie, you know who he is, why he's there, and you're just kind of sitting back and watching it take place. Billy and Carrie are leaving work, so Billy offers Carrie a ride, but then, of course, Packard shows up, as always, because he's obsessively always on Carrie's ass. Packard then walks up and tells Billy to shut your pie hole, guy.
Just on my way out too. Hold your horses, guy.
Billy, not being one to be punk, says, hey, you know what?
Hey, don't worry, Pac. We still got plenty of dog food. Hey, has this guy been wormed or is he just a naturally gifted child?
Augie then tries to attack Billy, but Packard whips out his knife and then threatens to cut his throat to kind of put him back in line. But that's because Packard has a plan. He wants Billy's car.
Hey, Rughead, what's this Triumph worth?
You're not getting it, Packard.
Billy basically is being forced to race, just like Chad did in the beginning of the movie, but out of nowhere, the Wraith car shows up to save the day, and to save Billy, because you know they would have just cheated and ran him off the road anyway, even if he did race him.
You ever seen one of those before?
Let's just add it to our collection first.
Packard and his gang, having never seen a car like this before, the Turbo Interceptor, decide we need to get that car at all costs and chase him down. But since they all take turns racing to win cars, it's now Augie's turn to race. Since Packard just won the last race against Chad at the beginning of the movie, it's now Augie's turn to step up and try to race. It seems like they all take turns racing. Now, if Packard was smart, he'd wonder how this guy even knew that they were racing in the first place. You see this car that came out of nowhere, all of a sudden it's lined up, ready to go, knows all the rules of your game. Feels like a setup to me. But Packard, I guess being such a proud guy, just totally ignores this and goes, go ahead, go get him, Augie.
Do it to him Augie style.
Okay, let's get it on!
The majority of the race, though, the Wraith has the lead. Eventually, the Wraith car just leaves Augie completely in his dust. It's not even close. They pass by a couple police officers, though, who are just hanging out on the side of the road. But so Augie's navigating his way through these curvy, windy mountain roads as fast as he can. And all of a sudden, bam, there's the Wraith car. Augie runs straight into the thing and then blows it the hell up. So Augie goes off a cliff, and of course, he ends up dying. But the Wraith car, which was crashed into by Augie's car, all of a sudden magically reassembles right in front of our eyes. Unfortunately for Augie, though, he doesn't have any luck as he's dead now. The cops then show up to see Augie's car at the bottom of the cliff, which is funny. One of the cop asks, do you think he made it?
Think he made it?
Which, I mean, come on. Do you think a guy's honestly going to live through that? I don't think so. We then meet Sheriff Lumis for the first time, played by Randy Quaid, who gives Packard and his small group of friends a hard time about the race extracurricular activities.
Been waiting and watching.
Congratulations.
Lumis tells Packard about Augie's death and wants to know who the guy in the other car was. Packard, wanting his own street justice, doesn't tell them who the guy is because, again, you got to remember this guy is going to want redemption for killing his friend, even though he doesn't seem like he really cares about Augie's death.
Augie's no loss, believe me.
We then see Augie's, whose body's completely intact, but he's green and his eyes are missing, almost like the soul was sucked out of him in real time. And then the cops wonder, how can he be in this condition when he was in a fiery car wreck?
Must have been 1,000 degrees in that car.
There should be blood everywhere and charred remains, but he's near perfect condition, just missing his eyes. Totally dead still, though. We then see the Wraith on top of the rocks watching this whole thing play out. On his arm is a metal device that mysteriously disappears and then reappears. I feel like it might be the car in like a weird transformed state. We cut to Packard in the car with Carrie, who's upset about Augie dying, to which Packard says, "Don't worry about Augie now. Tell me why you were in the car with Billy."
Now tell me something. What were you doing with Billy Hankins today?
Yeah, he doesn't care about his friend who just died. He just wants to know if this chick is loyal or not. Even though she's said it a million times, "I'm not loyal to you." But I guess Packard just doesn't get the message and his priorities are all out of whack. Packard then cuts his hand on a knife for some reason to show Carrie how much he loves her. And Carrie's not impressed, even saying, "I don't love you and I never will love you." I think it's important for Packard to just remember the no means no statement that came out back in the day. But, you know, it was the 80s. I guess no didn't always mean no. Or else they wouldn't have had to come out with that saying, am I right? So now we cut to Packard's shop where everybody's working on their cars prepping for their next races when the doors fly open and there's the Wraith with a shotgun. Before the Wraith starts firing though, he opens up his shield to reveal that it's Charlie Sheen, aka Jake, aka Jamie, and Packard refers to the shotgun as a kidney buster.
Buddy, I'd put that kidney buster down if I was you.
Rughead, who is Packard's main mechanic, looks at Jake and has like a flashback to when they killed Jake too. Rughead, we're gonna get to him in a little bit, but he's an interesting character in this whole thing. I mean, Jake goes in there and really destroys Packard's shop and then points the gun directly in Packard's face. And Packard stands there like a stray G, not running. Finally, you see Packard get a little upset when he starts just dusting everything he owns. And he whispers, "Son of a bitch," because Jake literally shoots almost everything in the shop and destroys their shop, then vanishes in thin air. Gutterboy and Skank's reaction to this is probably the funniest.
Hey!
Yeah,
Who is that guy?
I don't know. But whoever he was, he's weird and pissed off.
We then randomly cut to an airplane boneyard with Lumis, who's visiting a guy named Red who seems to be working on planes that have no functionality left. However, it turns out that Skank and Gutterboy work at this airfield full of dead skeleton planes. Lumis shows up to question Skank and Gutterboy, who still, in my opinion, are the stars of this movie. Gutterboy even tells Lumis he knows his constitutional rights.
You got a warrant?
I don't need a warrant when I have this badge.
Well, we know our constitutional rights, sir. You can't just come in here and... Oh.
And Lumis asked who the guy is in the car that killed Augie. Obviously, Gutterboy and Skank don't spill the beans, but Skank does drink hydraulic fluid during this interaction, which is pretty hilarious.
We ain't got no telephone, Skank.
A little hydro pump.
No.
But even if they wanted to say, they couldn't, because first off, we don't know who the guy is. Jake is not a real person. He's really Jamie, but Jamie's technically dead. So even if they wanted to be honest, I don't think they could in this situation. We cut to Lumis, who's eating at Big K's Burgers, waiting for the Packard to show up. Despite the fact that the Wraith, aka Jake, shot the hell out of their cars, somehow they managed to get them running again overnight. Packard asks Skank and Gutterboy, "Where is this guy?" To which they say, "We can't find him. We literally looked everywhere, all across town, and no sight of him." But then Packard picks up a piece of paper saying, "You can find me on Lookout Mountain Road." So all the guys quickly jump in their cars and peel out to go as fast as they can to Lookout Mountain Road to go find their guy and get their vengeance. Of course, the race car shows up as promised, and this time Packard's got a shotgun. Skank tries to grab it from him to remind him that you can't kill people in front of Rugheads because he's not down like that. He's actually a halfway decent person.
You got a big audience with Rughead over there, man.
You know, for a guy who drinks hydraulic fluid, I have to say this was pretty astute observation by Skank. Then Rughead, the guy who does the go signal for these races, tries to put on what's called a digital radio killer to stop cars' engines if they try to run after losing the race. And he tries to put it on the race car, but when he pops the hood, he looks at something that is out of straight science fiction, basically. It's a science fiction engine, if I've ever seen one.
What's wrong? Put it on! Packard! Get a load of this! Connect this son of a bitch and let's go!
I mean, are you telling me that this guy isn't even remotely interested in taking a look at what this guy's driving with? He's just like, no, just put it on there. I don't care what that guy's driving with. He could have the fastest engine in all of the land, but because I'm Packard, I know I can find a way to beat him. So he does his best to try to strap up whatever little contraption he made to kill the engine. I didn't think it was really going to have any type of effect on it, to be honest with you. Minty looking for retribution, and it being his turn to race, wants a piece of the Wraith car. Why anybody would want that, I have no idea, but I guess he does.
This one's for us, suckers.
As the race begins, though, the cops show up as well. So the cops are in hot pursuit of the race that's going on between the Wraith and Minty.
fever dream, feeling like it's a losing team, running through the moonlit beam. Tonight the finish line seems near, but who's to win isn't clear. Wraith with fury, a man with cheer. One will fall to new found.
In the race between Minty and Wraith, Minty doesn't seem to be faring any better than Augie did against the supernatural vehicle as they navigate the winding roads of Lookout Mountain Road. Again, the Wraith car leaves Minty in the dust, looking around as he's driving through these winding roads super fast. And when he makes the turn, voila, there's the Wraith car again. Minty drives straight into it, causing an explosion for both of the vehicles. Minty's Pontiac goes up in flames. It basically explodes. And of course, this means Minty is now dead. Again, we see this strange metal object disintegrate in the wreckage of the crash, only to reassemble the mysterious Turbo Interceptor car. However, this time the cops are in hot pursuit of the Wraith car. They set up a roadblock for the Wraith car, who comes to a stop before the blockade. We see the cops draw their weapons at the blockade, and the Lumis radios and says, "We got him."
We have him trapped, man. Give him a few seconds and he'll realize it too.
And then Jake just hits the gas, blows through the cop cars like they're pieces of paper. And then stops after doing it and then revs his engine almost as like he's flexing on these motherfuckers. Then proceeds to go on. The cops try to chase him, but the race car is just too fast and he leaves them in the dust. And as the cops chase, we see the race car basically evaporate into some kind of powdery substance, some kind of, star energy or something like that. Fades into a specter into the sky, leaving the cops scratching their heads to be like, where the hell did this car go? We cut back to Big K's Burgers where Billy offers Carrie a ride. And in order for Carrie to protect Billy, she says no, which Billy's grateful for because he says he wants to make it to his next birthday. When out of nowhere, Jake shows up on his bike and Carrie hops on the back. As Jake and Carrie are riding, they're spotted by Skank and Gutterboy, who then begin in hot pursuit of Jake and Carrie on the motorcycle. Gutterboy and Skank chase Jake down the alleyway. Skank and Gutterboy seem to run into every possible thing in this alleyway, laughing the whole time. They're having the time of their lives trying to chase Jake, while Jake, with a mild smirk on his face, knows full well that they're never going to catch him because after all, he's the motherfucking Wraith. And he's a superhero. Skank tells Gutterboy to grab the shotgun and load it.
Shotgun! I don't know nothing about no shotgun! Just grab the gun!
And they're planning to kill Jake the whole time, but Gutterboy's crying hysterically because he doesn't know how to use a gun. Skank tells Gutterboy to pull the trigger of the shotgun, and then Gutterboy, being the idiot he is, straight up shoots through the floorboards of the car, destroying the steering. So now Skank has no way of turning the car. They end up crashing and rolling the car.
Pull it, Trey! With your finger, goddammit, pull it! Nice shot! Blew the goddamn steering out!
But they survive the crash. Obviously, Skank and Gutterboy crashing gives Jake and Carrie exactly what they need to escape. Gutterboy and Skank crawl out of the wreckage, and Skank takes a big hit of WD-40 to try to calm himself down. We then cut to Jake and Carrie, who have arrived on the bike, and they have a romantic moment together. And Jake plants one on Carrie, while Packard's watching in the shadows like a total creep. Carrie warns Jake that if Packard saw them, he would kill him. And then Jake says, well, Packard's the type of guy who preys on fear and weakness of others. That's why he keeps those goons around him. And Carrie says, well, I'm scared too. And then Jake says, you need to stand up for yourself eventually. And then Jake invites Carrie on a date, and she accepts up to the mountains the next day, which she obviously accepts. The whole time, Packard's watching this from the shadows like a total stalker. Packard then begins to follow Jake, only to see Jake's motorcycle fly off into pieces into the night sky. Packard stops, takes a breath, and says, no way.
No way.
Packard then catches up to Skank and Gutterboy and asks them why they're walking.
Why are you walking?
A little problem with the CUDA, Packard.
He asked them if they saw Jake on the bike, and they said no, obviously, and that they're having car problems. They're not about to tell him that they almost just shot his obsession. And out of nowhere comes the Wraith car that rear ends the ever-living crap out of Packard and sending him into a graveyard.
Is that kid?
The Wraith then appears behind one of the tombstones in front of Packard, like a specter. I gotta say, it doesn't seem like Packard's very scared of much, though. Packard tells Skank to kill the Wraith.
Kill him.
Eat hot lead! Crud sucker!
And when Skank pulls the trigger of the shotgun, it backfires into his face. Skank then realizes that they're not dealing with some ordinary being.
It's just another damn gun! He ain't no human, Pack!
Jake is not human. Or as Charlie Sheen says,
I don't know, maybe not from this particular terrestrial realm.
But as Packard's talking to Skank, they look up and the Wraith is gone. As fast as it came, it disappeared. Packard looks at the grave and sees his own name. This is the first time, I think, in the movie where you can actually see Packard be afraid. So Packard and Skank leave. We then cut back to the shop where Packard is still working on the Daytona that they got in the beginning of the movie from the Chad. We also see that Packard's made friends with some lady as he's getting it on with her. We slowly see a first-person view creep into the room, making us believe that the Wraith is coming in to finish off Packard, only to find out that it's actually Sheriff Lumis. Sheriff Lumis requires Packard to leave and come to the station. He has a warrant this time. Packard has no choice but to actually go. He then asks the girl if she's okay, because you'd have to be seriously demented to want to sleep with Packard. She then thanks Lumis for getting her out of there. Packard is a total 110% creep, and what seems to be a complete and total grapist as well. We then catch up with Jake and Carrie on their mountain trip, and whew, Sherilyn Fenn look good here. Carrie tells Jake that she's been having this reoccurring dream of driving east on a motorcycle with Jamie Hankins, even though Jamie's dead, so she doesn't see how that could be a reality. We then flash back to Jamie Hankins with Carrie, and we see Packard murder Jamie. This is about the 4th time in this movie that we've seen Jamie get murdered, all from different perspectives. Jake and Carrie begin to smooch. I guess if you're gonna kiss Charlie Sheen, this was the time to do it, before he became a total giant man whore. Thank God for Sherilyn Fenn, am I right? We cut back to the sheriff's office where Gutterboy and Packard and Skank and Rughead are all sitting at the police station. I assume because Lumis knows that they're being hunted by this Wraith character and is there to keep them protected, or as a trap to lure the Wraith. Lumis goes on to say that Minty was found the exact same way that Augie was. Lumis tells them that this kid is trying to kill people with cars and that he's targeting their gang, which is probably a good thing for society, but if they try to go after that kid and get retribution, that he's going to make sure that all of them are on death row. Jake then drops off Carrie. They do a little more smooching. Now it's time for Jake to finish off what he started. We cut back to Packard's garage where Rughead's packing up to leave. It almost seems like the gang's all going in separate directions to protect themselves. Rughead gives Skank and Gutterboy a speech about how he's getting out of Dodge because when he was in the gang and they had the advantage, it was fine and fun, but now that there's a guy out there killing the gang, specifically their gang, he needs to leave. So Rug exits the garage, leaving Skank and Gutterboy working on their car. When out of nowhere, the Wraith car drives directly past Rughead, straight into the garage, causing it to explode. Killing Skank and Gutterboy. Rest in peace, Skank and Gutterboy. You'll surely be missed.
Moonlight's fading as the night turns gray. Skank and Gutterboy have gone away.
Skank, you
Left
pussy.
behind their dreams and worn out shoes.
Yeah.
Who is that guy?
Echoes of their laughter
Oh, no.
now just blues. Empty bottles line the alley's edge.
It's got some kick.
Graffiti whispers about a broken pledge. Candles flicker where the shadows mourn.
Looks like the dark to me.
In the silence of a love forlorn. Goodbye, Skank and Gutterboy, it's time to leave. In the heartaches and the scars that we grieve, we'll remember every fight and every flame in the dark streets that still call their name. Rusty chains on a forgotten swing. Songs they sang, now the wind does bring. Footprints vanish, but the stories stay. Carved in the walls where they used to play. Stars are weeping for the rebel souls. Restless spirits in the night patrols. Underneath the city's quiet dome, two legends lost but never gone from home. Goodbye, Skank and Gutterboy, it's time to leave. In the heartaches and the scars that we grieve, we'll remember every fight and every flame in the dark streets that still call their name. rusty chains on a forgotten swing. Songs they sang, now the wind does bring. Footprints vanish, but the stories stay. Carved in the walls where they used to play. In the dark streets that still call their name.
Even though they were involved in that terrible murder, but we'll just overlook that. Rughead witnesses all this, watching the car leave after it exploded the entire shop. Lumis and the cops rush to the shop, but obviously it's too late. There's no helping Skank and Gutterboy at this point. Rughead tells Lumis that Gutterboy and Skank were in the garage when it got blown up by the guy in the turbo. Then Rughead tells Lumis that Jamie Hankins came back from the dead and is killing Packard and his gang to seek vengeance. But he had no part in the killing of Jamie, which is probably why the Wraith hasn't gone after Rughead.
Jamie Hankins was here the other night with a shotgun.
We cut back to Lumis at Big K's Burgers interviewing Billy. He tells Billy that Jamie's body was never found and that Packard's crew all are dying one by one. Billy says, "I'd like to shake the hand of the guy who does it."
Yeah, well, if he is, I'll shake the hand of the guy who does it. Order up!
Lumis tells Billy that he thinks that Packard is the one behind the killing of his brother, even though Billy should have probably known this all along. But then Billy asks, "Why are you asking me this about my brother? What's the connection?" To which Lumis replies, "I don't know." Jake and Carrie show up on the bike to Big K Burgers. Then Jake tells Carrie that she needs to stand up to Packard, to which Carrie starts asking, "Well, why do you care so much? Why do you want me to stand up to Packard so badly?" To which Jake says,
He knows why I'm here. See, I've come a long ways for you. My time is just about over.
I'm assuming he's saying this because he knows that Packard's the only one left now that he needs to take out. Again, Packard watching this whole thing play out afar because, well, you know, Packard gonna creep. And he also always seems like he's in the perfect place to stalk. Like, I just feel like everybody should just know that Packard's watching in this universe. Packard then shows up to Big K Burgers asking Carrie why she's been ignoring him.
Yeah, I've been checking you out past couple of days. You've been real busy.
Packard picks up Carrie and tries to walk off, but Billy runs out to try to stop Packard. Then Billy proceeds to take a butt whooping and doesn't throw a single punch. It's almost like he went out there just to take shots from Packard. Billy didn't even throw a single punch. Makes you wonder why he went out there at all, just to become a punching bag for Packard. Especially if you just heard that he killed your brother and you just stand there and take punches to the face from the guy who killed your brother. It just doesn't make much sense, but I guess, you know, movies. Billy then screams at everyone around him, yelling, "Why didn't you help me? Why did you let him take her?"
You bastard chicken shits! You let him take her!
I gotta be honest, Billy's absolutely right here. Nobody did a finger to try to help this poor girl getting kidnapped in front of all of them. Packard begins driving away Carrie against her will. Carrie then begins to question Packard about the night that she was with Jamie. Packard then slaps her. Don't make Packard slap a bitch. Packard does admit that he was the one who killed Jamie Hankins.
So it was you.
Carrie finally lets Packard know the truth and says that she'd rather have Gutterboy's children than to be with him.
I'd rather go to Nogales, have the Gutterboy's Cretan children, and die than to be with you.
And that Packard could kill her, but he'll never make her love him.
You can kill me too, Packard, but you can never make me love you.
Packard pulls over to the side of the road with Carrie and pulls out a switchblade knife, looking like he's about to finally finish her off, only to have the Wraith car show up, and Packard challenges him to a race. It's Packard's turn after all. The rest of his crew's dead.
You want a race? 'Cause I'll show you a race!
We'll finish this later.
Packard then turns to Carrie and says, "We'll finish this later." Packard's so sure of himself that he's going to win this race, even though he almost lost to Chad in the beginning. Packard helmets up, and off they go for the first time in the movie.
In the shadow of the night, a wraith begins to ride.
And actually, for a minute, has the lead on the Wraith car. He's done better than the rest of his gang racing. It makes you wonder how any of these guys won cars against other people.
Packard thought he'd walk away from the crime he tried to hide, but the dead have words to say in the dark where spirits fight. Justice rides on ghostly wings. Fear the wraith who feels no pain. Revenge is song the midnight sings.
Wraith car then leaves Packard in his dust just like he did to the rest of Packard's gang while the cops get in hot pursuit. It's interesting that the cops always seem to find themselves around these races but never do anything to stop them until they're already halfway through the race. Packard hides behind a truck for some reason. I can't really understand why. And then drives around the truck, nearly hitting a cop car coming from the other direction. There's cars on the back of the truck that Packard passed and they all begin falling off, causing the cops to abandon the pursuit. It's just Packard again, and the Wraith is nowhere to be seen. Packard's still driving fast for some reason, even though he completely lost sight of the Wraith. We see the Wraith car turn around and start heading back in the other direction where Packard's coming from. We begin to see them driving really fast towards each other, almost like a game of chicken. Only for both cars to go on a head-on collision into each other, causing the Corvette to explode and roll down the side of the road. I will say there's an interesting looking little tornado fire that goes on in this shot, which I thought was really cool. I don't know if that was by accident or not, but whatever it was, it ended up looking really cool for the shoot. As always, Lumis shows up to see the aftermath of what happened between the Wraith and his victim. Loomis' deputy asks if he wants him to set up roadblocks to try to catch this guy, and Lumis just says, "You can't catch something that can't be catched," basically acknowledging that whatever is doing this is some kind of supernatural being. We then see Carrie walking, and then the Wraith cars show up to Carrie, and out comes the Wraith himself. A couple flashes and a bits of lightning, it's revealed that Jake was inside the Wraith car the whole time, which we, as the audience, already knew. But Carrie's learning this for the first time. Jake tells Carrie that he was given a second chance, but he needs to do something before they leave. We cut to Big K Burgers where Billy's sweeping up after taking the beating from Packard. Jake walks in and Billy almost hits him with a bat. Jake tells Billy he's leaving, but he wants to leave him something before he goes. And he pulls out a key, hands the key to Billy. Jake tells Billy the car is called a Turbo Interceptor. It's the only one in existence.
Turbo Interceptor. The only one in existence.
And it does very special things. Billy says, "Who are you?" And Jake says, "You just said it, Billy."
Who are you, bro? You said it, Billy.
Billy yells for Jake to come back after he sees the car. He's totally blown away, saying that this car is far out.
Hey, man, far out.
Billy asks the question, "Jake, who are you?" And then it might dawn on Billy that it's not Jake at all. It's been Jamie, his brother, this whole time.
Jake! Jake! Jamie!
Which is a pretty powerful moment of the movie, I gotta say. It's one that's stuck with me ever since a kid. I quote it all the time, but nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about because they don't know what this movie is. So that's why I'm kind of telling you guys this story. So that I can just say Jake, Jake, Jamie, and everybody will understand what I'm saying. We see Lumis staking out Carrie's house, and Jake show up to pick up Carrie. She hops on the back, and they drive off into the sunset. Actually, the moonset. I think it clicks on Lumis that this is the guy that he's probably been looking for this whole time, but Lumis just kind of shrugs it off and just lets him drive away. Almost like Jake did him a favor by taking out Packard's gang. We then see Jake and Carrie drive off into the moonset. So that was 1986's The Wraith. I gotta say, as a kid, it was one of my favorite movies growing up, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this little breakdown of the movie. You never really get to understand what made Jake have the ability to come back, and by the way, I don't think I clarified it in the movie, but Carrie did finally realize that Jake was Jamie, which is why she embraced him at the end. Everybody realizes it was Jamie. Nobody understands why Jamie was allowed to come back and have a second chance, probably because he was unfairly murdered or something like that, but I would have loved if they would have figured that out in the movie. But Charlie Sheen's character, Jake, seems to keep it very obscure for some reason or another. Probably just to keep your imagination full and let you figure it out for yourself. A lot of directors do that kind of weird stuff. But anyway, guys, I hope that you really enjoyed this. This was a labor of love for me. I've wanted to cover this movie for so long, ever since starting a YouTube channel, so I'm happy to be able to finally share a part of my childhood and my excitement for this movie with you guys. And if you've never seen this movie, I highly suggest going to check it out. With that said, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.
In the realm of endless fight, where truth and justice ignite, he marches on courageous and bold, e.g. lately a hero story told.